and England rugby bosses are expected to call on fans to drop Swing Low Sweet Chariot as their unofficial anthem because of its associations with slavery. The anthem, which is thought to be a 19th century African-American slave song, is the subject of a review by the RFU, first sung at Twickenham in 87 for Martin Offiah, a black player nicknamed Chariot. It had become essential at England matches, but the RFU said more needs to be done to grow awareness, and that many are not aware of the song's links to slavery. Martin Offiah, of course, has welcomed the Rugby Union's decision to review the use of the song, but does not want it banned. Maurice McLeod is Vice Chair of Race on the Agenda and Labour Councillor. Maurice, afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
So do you agree with Martin Offiah that we shouldn't ban it, or do you agree with some of those that are calling actually to have this removed altogether?
Well, I mean, it feels like a bit of a straw man argument, to be honest, but, you know, of course I agree with Martin Offiah. It shouldn't be banned. I think that fans could absolutely think about what they're singing and why they're singing it. As you say, most up until now have been completely ignorant to its history. It's a powerful and emotive song that's sort of the cries of people that were going through a really awful time in history, and it's sort of trivialised. But that's why I don't feel comfortable with it. But I don't want to ban it.
Have you always felt that, Maurice? Have you always had that kind of sense that, you know, you were aware of what you believe it's about, and therefore it was, you know, even back in 87 when they were singing it for Martin, did you sense then that there was something a bit iffy about this?
Personally, yes, but you know, does that matter? You know, I'm pretty much your age. I'm 50 years old. I've grown up in Britain. There are lots of things that appear in culture, and you go, oof, I don't really feel comfortable with that, but that's life. Yes, so I've always felt a bit funny about it. I don't personally sing it. If someone asks me why, I explain. But, you know, people are free to make their own choices, aren't they?
I mean, there's various, like all of these, as I'm sure you're aware, there's loads of interpretations of how it was written, why it was written, what it really meant. A former slave, we understand, wrote it. Was it written with joy? Was it written because somebody was trying to highlight, you know, what had happened in the past? I mean, I guess, you know, without sort of trying to sound like there's a big get-out clause here, Maurice, it does sort of seem to depend who you talk to.
Yeah, sure. All of that. That's why I'm talking about how I and, you know, some other people who obviously feel the same way feel about this song. I feel that, you know, I've grown up with this song. It's a song that, you know, it's a song that's from the church, from the gospel sort of background that a lot of black people have grown up with. I was quite surprised when I heard it being sung in the rugby grounds. And like I say, I've always been uncomfortable with it. If people want to sing it, though, they can. You know, it's a choice. You choose to offend if you want to.
I mean, even if everybody is fully aware that it had slavery and has slavery connotations, does that matter in a way? I mean, not to reduce the severity of what the song might be about, but in fact, you know, is it a problem if it's used elsewhere?
Again, like I say, if you do something consciously, you know, I'm a Liverpool fan. We're famous for taking historical songs and rewriting them and what have you. Now, if someone came to me or sort of said, oh, that song you sing about, I don't know, the fields of Athenry, or your adaptation, that's really painful to me because of X, Y, or Z, I would consider whether I should carry on singing it again. That's what humans do. We take account of other people's concerns, don't we? We don't. I don't have to. But
yeah, I mean, we had, talking of Liverpool, we had John Barnes on the programme yesterday, and he was saying that, you know, we need to acknowledge things. It would be stupid not to, and we can say sorry. But there is a point when you have to move on. And perhaps some people, when you use the phrase move on, interpret that as forget. But, I mean, there's lots of parts of our history, of course, Maurice, where, you know, we look at whether it's about, you know, slavery, whether it's about war, whether it's about famine, whether all manner of terrible things that have gone on over the years, here, there, and absolutely everywhere on planet Earth. Is moving on okay? Is it all right to say that?
Moving on, if moving on means progress, then yeah, we all want that, don't we? But, you know, I heard your sort of soliloquy just before I came on, saying, it's time. How many more apologies? We weren't asking for apologies. We want equality and justice. Apologies are nonsense. Yeah. So you're making an argument that we've apologised enough, but no one even asked for one. That's why I call it a straw man.
You have. I've got some good. You've got the equality and the justice already exists, so that box is ticked. Where next?
Equality and justice certainly doesn't exist, Ian Collins. If you have a look at any of the reports,
I promise you it does. I promise you it does. I promise you. It's even enshrined in law as well. That's the good thing. So you don't have to take my word for it.
Sometimes the law isn't adhered to. Yeah.
Oh, I get that. No, I absolutely get that. I understand. I talk about this from a class perspective. I know what it's like in my industry, coming from a working class background, where you can't get a looking for love nor money. It's a big old, it's a big old wall that you've got to try and kick down sometimes. And I think sometimes we perhaps miss that side of the argument. But I'm also aware that to suggest we haven't come on leaps and bounds in the last 20, 30 years would also be lunacy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging where there's been progress, but there's also nothing wrong in acknowledging where we've still got work to do. That's what needs to be talked about, not songs and statues. Let's talk about the real stuff.
Yeah, what have I got in my life that you haven't got in yours, Maurice, to put it sort of like that? And I ask that as I'm genuinely intrigued by that.
Well, I don't know you. I don't know what's in your life, and you don't know what's in mine, but and this is the phrase I guess you're trying to get me to say. You have privilege. You don't have to.
No, I never even thought of that actually. But by the way, I don't have any privilege. But I know where you're going.
Well, okay. So you don't have to consider your race as you go about building your career. You might have to consider your class, as did I, but you don't have to consider your race. Your race isn't a barrier to your progress. That's privilege. That's what you've got that I don't.
Well, and where would your race be a barrier to progress today?
Okay, so we both.
There's plenty of jobs you could look for now that would say you could apply and I couldn't. So, but I don't think there's any the other way round.
No,
which by the way, I understand.
Yeah, there might well not be, but if you look at any industry, mine, journalism, tiny proportion of, especially of black journalists. If you look at any profession that's desirable or well rewarded, you'll find apart from football, actually, you'll find a lack of black people involved. So if you're saying
that's a journey, though, isn't it? That's a progress. I mean, that's work in progress. It is a journey.
Well, justice delayed is justice denied. How long is this journey going to be then, Ian?
What are we talking about? I mean, if you would, what era would you look at when you would say that this country became what you might call genuinely multicultural? I know people divide on that phrase, but would you look at the 60s as an example?
I'd argue that this country has always been multicultural. There's never been unless you're going back, thousands of years, this country has always been a mix of people coming in from all over the place. As you've said, we've had the Vikings, we've had all sorts of people coming in. I mentioned that at the beginning, but I mean, what I'm intrigued in is there often a confusion here? And I can't walk in your shoes, and I'd never pretend to, but I wonder if there's a confusion. If you take journalism as an obvious example that has been crammed full of Oxbridge elites since year dot, that's not a precluding of black people, that's a precluding of all people unless you were part of that group. Yeah, absolutely. I don't, as I said earlier, class is definitely part of the conversation.
Gender, all manner of, there's a big old catch-up game.
It's what we lefties like to call intersectionality. But yeah, there's lots of things.
Hey, Maurice, hang on a second. First you reveal you're a Liverpool fan, then you reveal you're a lefty. My goodness, I can't believe we've spoken for this long. This is extraordinary.
Time to mute me, probably.
We end on a civil note. Maurice, thank you. We will speak again. Maurice McLeod, Vice Chair of Race on the Agenda and Labour Councillor, with us here on talkRADIO.